All right, and welcome to episode number 7 of the TheHapaPodcast. This is actually the second episode too that's in video form, so I guess second episode in a way. All right, well today we have the Hard Knocks episode 3 recap. I'm gonna be going over the NBA players. They're protesting. They're gonna sit out a couple games of the playoffs. Well, not a couple games, but sit out for a bit due to the that police shooting of Jacob Blake. It's very sad. And then after that, I'm going to be getting to some free agent, fantasy football rookies, and we're going to see like how they make an impact in PPR leagues, which stands for point per reception league, where they usually have like defensive players, defensive backs. All right, so yeah, I know I have a cough. It's from the weed, not COVID. So yeah, I'm safe. All right, so first up, we have the NBA actually, my bad. They're postponing the playoffs for a while. Right now, they had the Milwaukee Bucks. They wanted to sit out, and protest, like show support for Jacob Blake. And, LeBron and the Clippers and everybody else decided, that they're going to sit out. And it makes a lot of sense because they should show that solidarity. They're wearing, the names and the stuff on their jerseys anyways, since they've been in this bubble during COVID. And yeah, just getting out there, standing together as a players association too, because it's the NBA PA against the NBA owners, really. And to say against, I'm not trying to say they're like totally far on one side or the other, but I mean, the players want certain things, the owners want certain things, and really by showing this, they're showing how much power these players have, how much their voice really does matter. And that's something I feel that Colin Kaepernick, he didn't get a fair shake in the NFL back in like 2015, 2016 when he first did the kneel for the national anthem. And it's kind of crazy how people interpret that as, oh, you hate our troops, you don't support our troops, they fight for our freedom, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. Hey, my grandfather, I almost called him a grandfather. My grandfather was actually a veteran in World War II, and it's kind of like, it's very interesting that when someone like Colin Kaepernick even comes out and says, hey, this is to protest police brutality, like, he's using his platform to get his voice out, whereas maybe some average Joe couldn't get their voice out to that amount of people on that like big of a stage, which is like the NFL. And yeah, they kind of fucked him over, and now they're trying to bring him back for some reason like 5 years later, and it's kind of like you're just bringing him back for publicity. It's not because you actually want him there. It seems like you just want to dick ride on Colin, but it's neither here nor there. And since the NBA postponed their playoffs, the NFL has actually suspended practices today. Many organizations are doing this across the league. One interesting one is my favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. One of their quarterbacks, I'm not sure if he's going to be a starter or the backup this season behind Phillip Rivers, but Jacoby Brissett, he got all of his teammates on the Colts, and they all, those who weren't registered to vote, they all got together. They went down and to wherever their polling station is, or wherever you got to sign up there in Indianapolis, and they all registered to vote, which I think is fantastic, because usually those people that don't have problems happening to them, or don't get called racial slurs or made fun of because how they look, I mean, they're told, and I've experienced this too, it's, oh, well, why don't you go out and vote if you want to fix things? Hey, just go out and vote, bro. And it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'll get right on that shit, when you get all the corrupt people out of office and you make it a fair playing field for people to vote and all this and that. But, sorry, that's just off on a little rant. But, besides the point, really appreciate Jacoby Brissett. The guy is stepped up huge last season when Andrew Luck retired, like a week before the season. And, he stepped up big, and I think he's a very solid backup quarterback as well. However, I do feel he's more of a game manager, more like San Francisco and Kansas City versions of Alex Smith. Washington, I mean, he broke his leg, so we don't know that version yet, but yeah, Kansas City and San Francisco, it seemed like he was like a game manager. I mean, he wouldn't lose the game, he wouldn't throw too many interceptions, but he also wouldn't go off for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, maybe 186 yards and a touchdown, or, maybe not even that, but a good completion percentage. So, shout out to Alex Smith. And next on the list, we have the Hard Knocks Episode 3 recap. 3. And on this week's episode, we see a lot more in-depth looks at how these rookies and the other players who aren't like a solid veteran, they aren't going to have a solid position. It's not going to be like Aaron Donald's going to lose his starting role on the Los Angeles Rams defensive line. No, he's going to be there. It's more of, I forget his name, but it's a rookie linebacker. I believe he is a 6th round pick for Los Angeles, the Rams. And he's not going to get these preseason reps that you would normally get in a regular year. Or, what is a regular year? No year is regular. It's all fucking terrible. Just kidding. And looking at this guy, he's making these mental lapses. He's doing all these mistakes, missing his calls, not being where he's supposed to be in the zone. He's not rushing the proper gap, which is pretty crucial because, considering one gap leads you to the quarterback faster and the other, you got to go around an offensive lineman. You're going to want to take the inside gap, and this guy's cutting to the outside. And he keeps joking around like, oh, haha, like, oh, yeah, I keep fucking up. And it's kind of like, I'm just sitting there and watching like, bro, like, you're fucking up. And you have nothing to do during this fucking lockdown but do football. Why don't you read the fucking playbook? Bro, why don't you study? Because it's like, you're not going to get these reps in the games. You're not going to give an opportunity, give the coaches an opportunity to see what you do, how you do it, how fast you can react in a live situation, like a preseason game, or as live as it can get for that time of the year. And he's messing up his plays. And, when you don't have that opportunity like preseason to get out all that tape, even to other teams besides your own coaches, if you do end up getting cut, you don't have those reps. And to see this guy making those mental mistakes and then kind of laughing about it, but it's like, bro, what else do you have to fucking do? It's interesting. I don't see him making it through the season. I feel like he'll probably be like another one of those Hard Knocks guys every year where, yeah, they cut his ass at the end. Maybe the second to last episode. But yeah, so, hopefully this kid can get it done, because when you can't get it done in practice, when you don't have live game reps, those practice reps are your live game reps. And that's going to give the coaches a good idea of what they're working with. Alright, number 3 on the list, fantasy football rookie sleepers in the PPR format. That means points per reception. That means every time a player catches a football, say you're a wide receiver, tight end, a running back, or perhaps a quarterback, you get 1 point. Plus whatever blah 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 points are for yardage and etc. But you get 1 point per reception. Simple enough. And 3 rookies I find very interesting on offense, so I'm going to have 2 on defense, 3 on offense. The 3 on offense are Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers. He's a wide receiver, 1st round pick out of Arizona State. Fast. He's not like N'Keal Harry from 2 drafts ago. He was another wide receiver from Arizona State, big-bodied and great hands. But he didn't have that burner speed. He could get the release because he was so big-bodied. He could use his leverage and his weight to get around the corners or get around some kind of nickel back or even a linebacker if that's where he's kind of running across the field like on, say, a drag or a slant route. But it's interesting here because one would normally think, oh, well, you have Deebo Samuel there too. What about George Kittle? What about running the offense? Because it seems more of a power-based run offense or West Coast. And you're going to see Brandon Ayuk, he's going to get a lot of points. Who's Jimmy going to throw to besides Kittle? Teams are going to game plan around Kittle now. It's like how they did with Gronk back in the day in New England. You got to game plan around this guy. He's too good of a blocker. He's got too good of hands. Great release off the line. And he's too fast for a linebacker and too big for someone in the secondary, i.e. a safety or a corner. Just too big. So it's a mismatch, great mismatch problem to have. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk. So I say he's going to be a fantasy sleeper. He's going to be great to draft because Deebo Samuel is still dealing with his foot surgery. He got he got a foot surgery on his right foot, broken foot, on June 18th. The doctors are saying 12 to 6 weeks. We all know because of the Adrian Peterson story that, hey, 12 to 6 weeks doesn't mean shit. You could come back in 8. I don't know. But it'll be very interesting to see how he takes in these training camp reps, being really the only receiver because Jalen Hurd's out for the season. What did he do? I don't even know. This guy tore his ACL last year, did something this year. It's like, I mean, this guy's fucking up with injuries. I mean, I feel bad for him. It's very unfortunate. But he's out. Emmanuel Sanders went to the New Orleans Saints in free agency, which was a pretty big blow, but I mean, I say that's a big blow because in San Francisco last year, before they had traded for Emmanuel Sanders from the Broncos, they really were struggling with their passing game. Jimmy Garoppolo was struggling in the passing game, but they had a good run offense, and that's what got the offense going. That's where a lot of their yards came from. Jimmy Garoppolo is, like I said earlier about Alex Smith and Jacoby Brissett, he's a game manager. I don't think he's an Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to come back and win it. And because of that, you need all the help you can get. Now, that's why they drafted Brandon Ayuk. Emmanuel Sanders left in free agency. Jalen Hurd's out. So you have Deebo Samuel, who's out with foot surgery recovery, and then you have Brandon Ayuk. And really early in the season, he's going to get a lot of points. He's going to be the number 1 receiver. He's very fast. So I imagine Kyle Shanahan's going to come up with some kind of, like, oh shit. I usually have short hair, but because of COVID, my hair got longer, so it's a bowl now. It kind of sucks. So as I was saying, Brandon Ayuk is very fast, and I imagine Kyle Shanahan's going to come up with some pretty good plays to get him the ball. Just get him the ball in space. That's what he did with Deebo last year. Deebo Samuel, he's going to be coming back soon, and then you're going to have a 1-2 punch with wide receivers on that offense. But Deebo's fast. Deebo's strong. That's how Brandon Ayuk is, and I see a lot of good things happening very early on, and you know, he could be turning out to be a long-term solution at wide receiver in fantasy. Next on the list, we have Zach Moss, running back out of Utah. He rookie out of Utah, and I think he'll do pretty well. Last year, you had I believe Shady McCoy and Frank Gore and Devin Singletary out there in Buffalo. And Frank Gore was more of the goal line, kind of 3rd and 1, hit him, 3rd in a cloud of dust football. You know what I mean? And he's going to run it up the gut. He's going to punch you in the mouth. He's going to get those goal line carries. And Devin Singletary was the more elusive back. He could catch the ball. He was a little faster. I mean, he just had the agility and athleticism that Frank Gore was lacking now that he's older. And I think it's going to be interesting because last year Devin was injured. That's when Frank went off. And this year, now that Frank's gone, I think he's like down in Miami or some shit. I mean, he's gone somewhere. Zach Moss is going to split the carries. He's not a slow back. He is a bigger back, so I feel like he will kind of take more of those carries that Frank Gore had last season. But he's gonna be the boom. He's gonna be the boom on that offense, and they're gonna run it up the gut with Zach Moss, and then they're gonna break it out wide, throw it into the flats with Devin Singletary, or run it up the middle, do it out of draws, do it out of the shotgun. I mean, there's so many formations for Sean McDermott to do on that offense out there in Buffalo that it's gonna be a good year. Josh Allen is gonna have a good year. All right, and the last rookie I have on this list is David Asiasi, pardon me. Devin Asiasi. He's a rookie tight end out of UCLA. Plays for the Patriots now. Shit. As a Colts fan, I can't really root for those guys. I can't root for the Patriots. I just can't. I do like Cam Newton, but I just can't root for him. However, in fantasy terms, there is no team loyalty, and you just gotta go to win fantasy. I don't do that homer type shit where you pick a player because he's on your favorite team and you try to trade all your shit away. It's like, bro, like, don't want to say retarded, but that's retarded. It's a podcast, so, you know, If you don't like that word, I guess don't listen. Not like I have that many listeners anyways. All right, and so the last person, Devin Asiasi. He's a very fast tight end. He's a pretty big body, but he's very lean for his height. He has great release, great hands, and the release off the line is the part that intrigues me the most, is because he's a big body, so he could use his weight, leverage, whatever, to do like a down block on the line, but he can also break off and catch a ball, and it seemed like that's a lot of what they did with Gronk out there when Brady and, him and everybody was there in like 2011, 2012, before Gronk was, wearing the arm brace and everything hobbled by all that shit and the injuries. I think Devin Asiasi is going to be a fast addition to the offense, and he's going to give Cam Newton time, or he's going to give Cam Newton an opportunity that if pressure's coming, because, some of those Patriot offensive linemen didn't return because they opted out of COVID. Not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying you're not going to have the same offensive line you would think you would normally have there in New England. And because of that, I feel Cam Newton's going to be under a lot more pressure, a whole lot faster. He's going to have to dump the ball off. Is he going to dump it off to James White, the running back James White? Who knows? Are you going to hand it off to Sony Michel, run it up the gut? Who knows? What's N'Keal Harry doing? I don't know. You didn't really get to see too much of him last season. So Devin Asiasi, I think he's going to build a good relationship with Cam Newton. And I think it'll be pretty successful out there in New England. Belichick is a pretty good coach, so it'd be hard to imagine or even see him not winning games. That's why I feel like this match, it's going to be good. Belichick isn't going to go and just throw a season. He's going to go want to win a fucking Super Bowl. And that's what he's going to do if he gets that opportunity. That's why teams got to watch out for this fucking kid. That's why you, as the viewer and listener, yes, you got to draft him on your fantasy team if he's there, or if you are even playing fantasy. Because, I guess if you're not playing fantasy, you don't even need to draft him. And this whole segment was kind of bullshit, so, yeah. All right. And for the two defensive rookies for fantasy football, I picked Kenneth Murray, linebacker from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a rookie out of Oklahoma. And Antoine Winfield Jr., safety from Tampa Bay. And I believe he went to Virginia Tech. His father, Antoine Winfield Sr., actually played for Ohio State back in the day and was a corner for the Buffalo Bills and the Minnesota Vikings, and played for about 14 seasons. Then in 2013, during the preseason of the 2013 season, he was playing with the Seahawks, and on the last round of cuts, he was released, and after that, he notified the team that he was going to retire. So, Antoine Winfield Sr. was, if you have a parent who's in the NFL, a lot of these players nowadays, when they're coming up, now they're playing, and they had their dad or uncle or whatever, grandpa even, play in the NFL, it's like they have this mindset from an early age, and they're able to see things differently, I assume. Where, what I mean by that is, say your dad had been playing offensive line his whole lot, basically your whole childhood, you're watching him growing up, and he's playing for an NFL team. And I'm sure you're going to want to play football, maybe, more likely than not. And I'm sure that dad, or the NFL player, is going to show you proper techniques, where to put your hands in between the chest, in between the shoulder pads. You want to push up, like how to tackle. You don't want to lead with your head. You kind of want to drop low, pick them, scoop them, drive them to the side. It's kind of like that shit. And I feel that Antoine Winfield Jr. definitely displayed that during his time in college. He was just praised by all of his coaches about how much he studies the film, how just even from what the offensive formation is, he can dissect it and tell you, bro, they're going to run it this way, they're going to pass it this way, whatever. And he just is he's a student of the game. And that's something you don't see too often today anymore. I mean, you hear about the hard work, putting in the hard work, doing all this, you got to put in the time, do it, and you'll get better and better. And I feel that's true. And you don't see that a lot in today's NFL. I mean, even that kid on for the Los Angeles Rams, that rookie linebacker, he wasn't studying his playbook, and he's goofing around, talking with Brett Favre on Zoom, laughing about how he's messing up plays and bullshit like that. And it's kind of like, well, that's what separates Antoine Winfield Jr. from that kid. That's what separates Antoine Winfield Jr. from, say, a Richard Sherman. Well, Richard Sherman studies this shit. He knows all the calls. He does all this. There's levels to this shit. And it'll be very, 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 very interesting to see Antoine Winfield Jr. play this season, because on Tampa Bay, I feel Tom Brady's going to keep them in games. That's going to keep the opposing offenses honest, and they're not going to just commit to only run plays, keep it away from Winfield. I mean, this kid's going to be sitting back there like a ball hawk, and he's going to pick off some passes. I think, I don't know how his tackling numbers will be, but I feel he'll get a lot of passes defensed and interceptions this season. At least 4 interceptions. All right. And then the other defensive rookie I have for fantasy is Kenneth Murray, the linebacker for the Chargers, rookie out of Oklahoma. This kid is just a captain of the defense. He was a captain, or not a captain per se, but a leader for sure on that Oklahoma defense when they won, or when they were winning all those games with, you know, Kyler and Baker, you know, those guys who won Heisman trophies. Well, you got to be on a good team to win that Heisman. They don't give it to the best player who's on the worst team, you know. They give it to the best player who's on a pretty fucking good team. And Kenneth Murray helped keep that defense in a lot of games. And just seeing him, he has a... He had a 4.52 40-yard dash at the combine. And what's interesting about that is his game tape and his speed on that on the stopwatch. They're totally different. They are way, way, way different. This guy flies around the fucking field. He's from sideline to sideline. He's like Deion Jones, you know, the linebacker for Atlanta, the Falcons. He's like Deion Jones speed. He's like Darius Leonard speed. He has that sideline to sideline speed. His zone coverage play is a little iffy. He needs to kind of sit back, drop his hips, drop his butt, you know, sit back, watch where the quarterback's going, watch where the players are running, where it's kind of what side it's leaning to. But this guy, as far as running up the gaps, running up the C gap or the B gap, and hitting those guys, getting through, getting past the offensive lineman to get to the quarterback. The guy had 4.5 sacks this last season, and 4 the year before that. He gets to the quarterback as a linebacker. And that's something I think the Chargers are going to really try to implement this season, because, you know, they fixed everything with Melvin Ingram in his contract. They're giving him all 14 for this year. They just signed Joey Bosa to the largest defensive player, largest contract for a defensive player in NFL history. I'm fucking up on my words here. And I can only imagine, now that they have Casey Hayward, Chris Harris Jr., Derwin James, you know, in that backfield, I would think that they're going to have time in that secondary to cover those receivers, play a zone, and you're going to be able to put pressure on the quarterback, especially from the edge. But if you can bring up Kenneth Murray through that B gap, or maybe even the A gap, slide him past the center, I mean, you can get to the quarterback, create pressure, maybe not get a sack, but you can create forced passes, create mistakes on that opposing offense. All right. Well, that'll do it for episode 7 of the HapaPodcast. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day. You dig?